What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. Today, we're going to be talking about the top 10 free agents still available during NFL free agency. We're going to go over the best fits for each player, all that and much more coming your way right now. Nick, we have been fully entrenched into NFL free agency. We have seen the first wave of free agents all get signed, and all the contracts have been dotted and crossed, and you name it, everything is done. Now we take a look and see that, okay, there's still some pretty big names out there that are still available for the second wave of free agency, which we all know is on the precipice of coming, usually right after the NFL draft. So I want to take a look here at the top 10 free agents that are still available and then see where we think that they're going to end up. So let's start off. I'm going to bring out number one, Jadeveon Clowney. He had a very, very bad year with the Tennessee Titans. Mike Vrabel couldn't coach this guy up. He was, he was opposite Vic Beasley. Both of those guys really struggled. Jadeveon Clowney struggled back in Seattle. Two spots in a row where he struggled is really tough to overcome. I think that he's got to work his way back, and I think the best spot for him right now is actually going to the Baltimore Ravens, where he can work under John Harbaugh. He can replace Yannick Ngakoue and Matt Judon as their edge pass rusher, and hopefully bring some more consistency to his game and help this Ravens defense get back to their former glory, because Jadeveon Clowney is not the same player he was back in Houston.
You know how you have a running list of players that I don't like, or as you like to put it, I hate? Well, you might want to add Jadeveon Clowney to that, because he's a guy that I definitely don't like as a player. I think that Jadeveon Clowney, after year 2 in the NFL, started his decline and has not shown any signs that he is improving and getting back to where he once was. I think he peaked right out of college. That was the height of his career, and he's never going to see that again. He's on the back end of his career, and he's a shell of himself. He's not going to improve. I think whatever team he goes on, doesn't matter if it's the Baltimore Ravens, the Steelers, you name it, he's not going to be any better. If you can't work well in Mike Vrabel's system, a guy who's played the position, had a tremendous amount of success, can't teach a guy with Jadeveon Clowney's skill set to be a great outside linebacker and rush the edge, then there's no hope for you. I don't think that Jadeveon Clowney is worth even an $8 million deal at this point. I think that he's worth near a veteran minimum. I don't see where the best fit for him is, but I'll agree with you. Probably the Baltimore Ravens are the closest thing to where Jadeveon Clowney can get back to a mediocre career and settle, play out the next couple of years and retire after 10 years in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I like Baltimore. I also like a couple other spots like Minnesota and some other teams that could possibly use them, maybe even Green Bay. But at number 2, we have Mitchell Schwartz, the right tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. And nobody's really looking at Mitchell Schwartz as a free agent option at this point, mainly because he just had back surgery, major back surgery in February. I mean, we're only less than 2 months removed from his surgery. Mitchell Schwartz has, he's 32 years of age. He's got the back issue. There's been retirement whispers going on around his camp. I just don't see a lot of action here. I think my prediction here is that Mitchell Schwartz ends up retiring.
I completely agree with you. I think that Mitchell Schwartz is not going to be able to come back from this back injury. He's 32, as you said, and that is the getting close to the end for even offensive linemen. And back injuries are serious injuries. Doesn't matter what sport you're playing. It's a serious injury, and you never fully recover from them when you're playing every single snap at tackle, and you need to be able to sit up quickly and then be able to rotate your body to adjust to edge rushers. he's not going to be able to do that as effectively as he once was. And I think that Mitchell Schwartz's career has sadly come to an end. If he does get an opportunity, I don't think that he'll get a chance to play until halfway through the season next year. But you know what? If he wants to continue and try to make it back into the NFL, I'm sure there's a team out there that's willing to give him a shot.
Yeah, even if he came back as like a swing tackle, somebody you want in your offensive line room, he's definitely got a veteran presence that he can bring to any offensive line that teams like the Tennessee Titans might really want to utilize after losing a player like Dennis Kelly, or players that just aren't up to snuff on other offensive lines. Listen, anything could be an upgrade for the New York Jets or for the Seattle Seahawks. So maybe they even give him a call. But either way, I wish him nothing but the best out of the back surgery. Hopefully, he can make a return to the NFL, but I do believe that he will end up retiring. Another player that is very close to retirement, we have Justin Houston. And Justin Houston spent a lot of time with the Indianapolis Colts after spending an entire career with the Kansas City Chiefs. Justin Houston is just as productive as ever, and he showed that in Indianapolis. I can't imagine that he doesn't end up going back to Indianapolis. My prediction is that he stays with the Colts. I think he liked it there. I think they like him there. They're going to bring him back on a veteran minimum deal. This is not a priority for them. It's not a priority for Justin Houston to get right back into the thick of things. I think that he will end up going back to Indianapolis for a 1-year veteran minimum contract.
I think it's time to put an end to all the negativity I've been bringing to this episode. So let's talk about Justin Houston, a bright spot on this list. I think Justin Houston, like you said, he's been playing lights out as an Indianapolis Colt, and I think he's improved from where he ended as a Kansas City Chief. He's back to his days. It's like he has Tamba Ali next to him again. But Justin Houston is absolutely dominating with the Indianapolis Colts, and I fully expect him to re-sign. I think this is the place for him. And the Colts are on the brink of a championship run if Carson Wentz can get back to form. I think that Justin Houston's best fit is with the team he already knows.
Next up on our list, we have wide receiver T.Y. Hilton from the Indianapolis Colts. T.Y. Hilton, he had a really good year with the Indianapolis Colts. Phillip Rivers kind of looked like he might have revitalized Hilton's career. At this point, his fit with most teams is going to be on a year-by-year basis. I don't really see him going anywhere else besides Indianapolis. The only other team that I can possibly even consider would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if they do not re-sign Antonio Brown. I can see him utilizing that same role, that tertiary role in the wide receiver core, where he will, he'll pick up the slack that Chris Godwin, if he can't perform or if he gets injured, he'll be able to slide into that role. But yeah, as it is right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are pretty much set. I see T.Y. Hilton either going back to the Colts or waiting for somebody to replace for an injury.
Yeah, T.Y. Hilton, there really isn't too much to say about T.Y. Hilton because his entire career has been spent in Indianapolis, and as he's gotten older, as he's gotten over the hump of 30, he has lost the speed, and he's no longer the burner in which he used to be. Now he's just a possession catcher. He's an underneath route runner, and he's very limited in his route tree. I think that he is only suited for limited plays in any playbook, and I think he showed he still has, somewhat of himself based on what we saw in the second half of last year, but it took him a half a season to get the ball rolling. It took him some time, and so moving on, he's now a year older, and his body has a lot more wear and tear on it. I don't expect him to be performing at an elite level week in and week out, and I fully agree with you. The Colts make the most sense. The Bucs would be an interesting option, but he's going to be looking more than just a veteran minimum.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And don't forget, there was no preseason last year. So every player got off to a slow start. And, T.Y. Hilton, he's a little older. So the slow start's going to be a little longer than most. But either way, I agree with you. He's got to get the ball rolling a little sooner than he did last year. Next up, we have Carlos Dunlap. And Carlos Dunlap, he's always been a really good pass rusher for the Cincinnati Bengals. Got traded midseason to the Seattle Seahawks. Balled out up in Seattle and did a really good job helping that pass rush. I think he goes back to Seattle. I think that, he liked it up there. I think he liked his time up there, and they're building something in Seattle. Hopefully, Russ sticks around. You will see how that all plays out. But at this point, Carlos Dunlap at 32 years old doesn't really have too many suitors. If he doesn't go back to Seattle, there's not many teams that are going to be looking out for this guy. I believe Seattle's his best spot.
Carlos Dunlap is another guy who is aging like a fine wine. I think that he gets better over time. And now that he's out of Cincinnati, he can finally blossom and be the defensive end he's always been. Now that he's in a bigger market, he, like you said, he balled out last season when he was traded, and he worked great on that offensive line. He didn't need Geno Atkins, he didn't need DJ Reader, he needed himself, and he got a new lease on life. He got a chance to prove to himself, well, he got a chance to prove to the rest of the league that he still has it, and he's still an elite edge rusher. And at the age of 32, there is no reason why any team wouldn't want this guy. I'm surprised that he is still available. I fully expect him to go back to the Seattle Seahawks, just like you, because of the scheme fit, because of how well he did last season. He's not going to get that in every single spot he goes. We saw that with Everson Griffin last year. I think the Seahawks still look to re-sign him and get him back on their team for next year.
Next up, we have Melvin Ingram, the defensive end for the Los Angeles Chargers. Melvin Ingram entering his age 32 season, just like Carlos Dunlap coming off the edge. Very potent pass rusher, somebody who can really set the edge and set the tone for your team defensively. The biggest issue is that he has been compromised by injury. He's missed 12 games since 2019. That is a lot of game time that Melvin Ingram has missed. But when he's on the field, he has performed extremely well. Look for Melvin Ingram to probably go back to Los Angeles with the Chargers. It'd be tough to see him go anywhere else. Maybe look at the Carolina Panthers. Maybe look at the Miami Dolphins. Some of these teams that are one pass rusher away. Maybe even take a look at the Cleveland Browns, see if they could utilize him opposite Myles Garrett. Either way, Melvin Ingram's looking at 1-2 year deal maximum. And it's all going to be about prove it. Can you stay healthy? Can you continue the production that you have seen on the field over the last few years?
I know I said that I was going to stop hating on some players, but just for old time's sake, Melvin Ingram doesn't age like a fine wine. He ages like a cheap beer. He's watered down and he's stale at this point. I think that Melvin Ingram is way past his prime, even with Joey Bosa opposite him on the field. He's still not performing great when he's out there, that is. He misses a ton of time due to injury, and there's a lot of teams that don't want injury-prone players, especially guys that are 32 years old.
Moving on, we have offensive tackle Eric Fischer. And just like Mitchell Schwartz, the Chiefs' offensive line got decimated with injuries last year. Eric Fischer was one of those casualties. The Chiefs needed to save cap space, and Fischer also blew out his Achilles tendon in January. This was a tough blow for him. He's 30 years old. The injury came toward the end of one of his better seasons. I think that he still has a place in the NFL, but he's probably not going to play in 2021. It's going to be very tough for him to come back. If he does, it'll be toward the very end of the season, just to maybe even test him out a bit. I actually seen him signing like a multi-year deal with very low guaranteed money, very low money overall, just so they can try him out for 2022. Keep him under contract, keep him locked up, because he only gets paid when he plays. If you have him under contract, it's going to help him in the long run. You're going to have a guy in your offensive system for a year. At least he can learn the playbook, get to know the players, everything like that. On top of that, hopefully you get him in his age 31 and 32 seasons that he'll be able to blossom and help your team out from there.
Yeah, I really don't see that Eric Fischer gets signed at all this offseason. Hopefully next season, though, next offseason, after his Achilles is fully healed and he can prove to ball clubs that he still has it. Achilles injuries are one of the worst injuries to come back from. They take forever to heal, and it's going to be at least until next February that he is out of commission and he can start to show some of these franchises that he'll be eligible to play in 2022. But for right now, Eric Fischer is going to remain a free agent for the foreseeable future.
Next up, we have linebacker KJ Wright from the Seattle Seahawks entering his age 32 season as well. Seems to be the big number around here. KJ Wright, he bounced back from an injury in 2018 and 2019, showed off his incredible talents. He did a really great job showing exactly what the defense was missing while he was gone. It's going to be tough, but I think KJ Wright ends up going back to Seattle. I think he's got to stick next to Bobby Wagner. He sticks up with Pete Carroll in Seattle. He was part of the Legion of Boom, and they're holding on to what they have left of that. He's there to bring in the new regime and help coach these guys up, help them learn, while also still competing for a championship title. I think KJ Wright is an integral part of what the Seattle Seahawks are trying to get done here.
A growing trend with a lot of older veteran players is that they just return to their ball club, a team that they've known pretty much their entire career, because it's familiar and it's a system they know they work in. And the same thing for KJ Wright. He has worked extremely well in that Seattle defense, and nothing has changed in that defense. They're going to continue to play the same way. He's still going to be the pass coverage linebacker he has been. And I think that even though he's getting up there in age, he's still performing well. He doesn't need to be as fast as he once was, because his football IQ has increased. His knowledge of the game is far beyond most players, and he knows how to better utilize his skill set to fit his lack of speed. So I think KJ Wright has plenty to offer to the Seattle Seahawks, and they'll end up offering him another deal.
Next up, we have cornerback Malcolm Butler. Malcolm Butler, the Super Bowl hero for the New England Patriots against the Seattle Seahawks. He went to Tennessee, had a couple up and down years, and then had his absolute best year last year as a starting cornerback. Absolute incredible talent. He's entering his age 31 season, so he's still got a little more football left in him. I really like what this guy can bring. He's a streaky cornerback. He can do really great things in man-to-man pass coverage. He helps a lot against that with any pass rush. I like this guy in the end of any defense. Now that it's the second wave, you're going to be able to buy him a little cheaper, get him a little lower. I believe that Malcolm Butler probably ends up going back to Tennessee, maybe, but it's very tough. Maybe he goes to the New York Jets. Maybe he goes to the Cincinnati Bengals. There's a few teams that make a little more sense for him, but Malcolm Butler, he's a big question mark right now in NFL free agency.
Yeah, Malcolm Butler has always been an above average corner, but he's never been an elite corner. He's never been one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. He'll always be known for his play in the 2014 Super Bowl. But Malcolm Butler has been great over his time in Tennessee. He has proven that he is more than capable of being the CB1 on any team. And now that he's over the age of 30, he doesn't have the speed he used to. He's going to find himself in the CB2 role, being the number two to somebody else on another team. If we're looking at some teams that I think make the most sense, the New York Giants make the most sense right now. You have Logan Ryan, his former teammate with the Patriots and the Titans, and Adoree Jackson just signed there. So you're going to get him some players that work well. Adoree Jackson can go back to the nickel role. Malcolm could be the CB2, and James Bradberry can continue to blossom as the CB1. I think that makes the most sense. But another team we should watch out for is the New Orleans Saints. With the little cap room they have, they need to replace Janoris Jenkins. They need to make sure that that secondary stays good. That way the defense can continue to work well and give the offense some help while they go through a quarterback change. I think that Malcolm Butler can find himself working well in either of those two systems.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of suitors for Malcolm Butler. And you talked about the New York Giants. I mean, just look at the Patriots pipeline. You have Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. You have Joe Judge in New York. You have Brian Flores in Miami. You have Nick Caserio in Houston. And it seems like all these guys just go around to the same teams. It's kind of interesting. But we'll see where Malcolm Butler ends up going. Finally, on our list, our final candidate that we have here is none other than cornerback Richard Sherman. Yes, the man, the myth, the legend, Richard Sherman, the creator and the vocal piece of the Legion of Boom. Richard Sherman's entering his age 33 season, so he is definitely up there in age. He's 1 year removed from an incredible 2019 season where he helped the San Francisco 49ers get to the Super Bowl. Obviously, he was limited with injury last year. Suffered a really big calf injury that limited him, and when he was able to play, he was hampered by that injury. I wouldn't take what you saw in 2020 too seriously with Richard Sherman just because of the injury. He was hampered a lot. I would take a look at his 2019 film and say, I'm going to say maybe a tick or two below that type of play. That's where I'm going to expect Richard Sherman. So, in my eyes, he's still extremely valuable. He's extremely versatile. I look for, like you said, with Malcolm Butler, the New Orleans Saints. And listen, Robert Salah is in New York, could be going to the New York Jets and work with his old defensive coordinator once again.
I think with Richard Sherman, there's been a ton of talk about him staying on the West Coast. And to me, that means one of two teams, the Las Vegas Raiders or the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm going to take the latter. I think the Arizona Cardinals make the most sense. Richard Sherman has never been about getting the most money. He's always about getting a great deal and winning at the same time. He is a competitor. He is one of the greatest competitors we have seen in the last 10, 15 years in the NFL. And I think he would be the perfect addition to a team like the Cardinals, who are making a Super Bowl run this season. He could possibly be the missing piece, but as you said, he's not a CB1 anymore. He's a CB2, and so he would just be a role player for them and a leader for the rest of the young players, so they would still be missing out on a CB1. With the Raiders, they drafted their CB1 last year, who they want to grow. So Richard Sherman could be the perfect offset to not only groom him, but to also help him on the field as well and lock down one side of the field. He may not have the best speed, he never did, but he knows how to cover the field. And so I think Richard Sherman offers a lot, and he can still be very valuable to any team he goes to.
You take a look at the Raiders in their division. Tyreek Hill, he's a big speedster. You got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams out in Los Angeles. You got incredible talent all around that division. And Richard Sherman is going to be put to the test if he goes to the AFC West. There's no doubt about it. The Denver Broncos have incredible talent at the wide receiver position. I think that he will be put to the test there. But if it makes more sense, I think the Arizona Cardinals. And not only that, he's been with the 49ers, he's been with the Seahawks. History should tell us that he's staying in the NFC West. I mean, it just seems like the natural progression of things is that either the Rams or the Cardinals end up taking this guy. Either way, I think he's going to sign a 1 year deal. It has been rumored that Robert Salah has done his best to try to recruit him to New York. I don't think Sherman leaves the West Coast, and but we'll see where he ends up going. All right, well, that's going to do it for now. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.